Images like this have become commonplace. Since March of 2020, we've seen military uniformed personnel assisting with pandemic recovery in every state and territory. Although commonplace today, in many cases, it took upwards of 90 days for DoD, DHS, and the National Guard to find a way to activate these soldiers and airmen. While at NPS, I propose that we do not have an adequate process for activating the Guard in a multi-state event like COVID. Emergency response action in the U.S. should be a bottom-up, city to state to federal government conversation in keeping with the national response framework. For COVID, this conversation resulted in direct intervention from the Office of the President of the United States, who pressed DHS and DoD to cooperate with governors' requests for federally funded Guard assistance. While I was enrolled in the CHDS program, I wondered how the National Guard is funded in natural disasters. I unearthed a blizzard of legal and doctrinal guidance that is almost impenetrably opaque. I wanted to find a catchy way to make my point more accessible, so I asked Dr. Fernandez if we could break the Pecha rules and introduce a video presentation to demystify the authorities you see on this page.
Help our audience understand the difference between Homeland Security and Homeland Defense.
Homeland Defense is DoD's mission. Think of the movie Red Dawn, the act of repelling a foreign force that wants to directly attack the homeland. Our mission, Homeland Security, is more an idea that encompasses the safety, security, and resiliency of U.S. citizens in the face of man-made and natural threats.
General, it looks like you have primacy in Homeland Defense. What roles do you have in Homeland Security?
The United States military will lawfully support our country to the maximum extent possible.
Okay, but specifically with respect to Homeland Security?
We are happy to support civil authorities.
Is that Homeland Security?
Doctrinally, no. Homeland Security is a DHS mission. They have primacy. But if an authorized official asks DHS for assistance, then we are willing to help them through defense support to civilian authorities, or DSCA, so long as we're reimbursed.
When we see the National Guard at work during floods, fires, and tornadoes, are these soldiers doing DSCA and being reimbursed by DHS?
Well, no, for smaller events, they're usually on state active duty under their governor's authority and being paid by state funds. These smaller emergencies are state matters and should employ state solutions and state funding.
So state active duty is Homeland Security. Okay, I see that for small events, but for larger events like the current COVID pandemic, these surely rise to a level where states should be able to receive federal assistance.
If a governor asks for help and there is a presidential disaster declaration, we can reimburse some state active duty within a month or two.
That is true in theory. Presidential declarations don't always authorize 100% federal cost share. For a national pandemic like COVID, the states are unable to manage the accounting necessary to request reimbursement at a rate that would allow the states to remain fiscally solvent. State coffers essentially become a credit card the federal government uses to make an advance on funding a national disaster.
Are there ways to federally fund the National Guard directly?
Federal funding of the Guard is designed for training only. Unless activated to do Homeland Defense or deployed overseas, there's almost no mechanism to federally fund the National Guard to accomplish Homeland Security.
Mr. DHS, couldn't you reimburse the DoD for their use of the National Guard in a federally funded status?
If a governor petitions FEMA for help, we could then draft a mission assignment to the Department of Defense to accomplish discrete tasks. DoD would have to agree that they cannot do the task with existing forces. DoD would then subassign the task to the National Guard, who are then essentially doing DSCA.
So, that's the way to put the National Guard in a federally funded status?
Our official position is that neither the DoD nor Congress has the legal authority to appropriate funding for the governor's use of their guards accomplishing DSCA.
But Congress does appropriate for DHS to fund disaster response. Could you track the costs associated with activating the National Guard and request reimbursement from DHS for DSCA?
Unfortunately, by the time we get reimbursed for DSCA, the fiscal year may be over. I can't confirm this, but a mission assignment from DHS means we essentially get forced to take these mission costs out of HUD to the detriment of other DoD programs.
So, DHS can reimburse the governors for their use of their National Guard in state active duty?
Yes.
But for large-scale events like the current COVID pandemic, states cannot afford to carry their Guard personnel on state active duty for extended periods.
That's correct. Aside from the pay and benefit disadvantages to state active duty, it's also administratively difficult, resulting in significant reimbursement delays. States with balanced budget amendments or an inability to assume debt could be quickly bankrupt.
Okay, but for large-scale events, the governors can request help from DHS. Then DOD can help and perform DSCA.
We do not have enough forces, nor are our forces adequately distributed to provide DSCA on the scale of a global pandemic response.
And DOD cannot activate the National Guard in a federally funded status because neither the DOD nor Congress has the legal authority to appropriate funding for the governor's use of their guards accomplishing DSCA.
I really don't like the optics of this answer, but unfortunately that is legally correct.
The agencies lampooned in the video want to help the nation recover from this pandemic. However, images of the National Guard helping after a disaster don't help the public understand the pre-deployment complexity alluded to in this video. As emergency managers, we should be concerned that it took weeks to navigate the process of federally funding the National Guard response to COVID. Even then, President Trump's order only allowed the military to pay Guard response costs for 43 of the states and territories from March through August, and then required a 25% state share. As taxpayers, this implies an unclear process to determine federal cost share at the outset and an equally opaque transition from unmanageable national-level disaster response to manageable state-level recovery operations. This is the Center for Homeland Defense and Security. Dr. Bellavita asked us not to take for granted that terms like Homeland Defense and Homeland Security inform action in the homeland. Defense support to civil authority, Guard actions subordinate to DoD mission assignments, is too narrow to accommodate nationwide operations like COVID response, where the Guard accomplished governor-directed, governor-controlled Homeland Security in a federally funded pay status. Thank you.